The Alliance for Inclusive Education is a national organisation run by and for disabled people, and we campaign for disabled people and non-disabled people to be educated together in the same classroom. And that's from nursery all the way through to lifelong learning. And we believe that education and inclusive education should be a right and not a struggle. To this end, all disabled people should get the support they need in their local mainstream school to be part of the community like everybody else. I think over the past few years, disabled people and their families have really struggled to get the right support they need in mainstream schools. And there's been a commitment from the government, the previous government to the one we have right now, to spend more money on special schools and less money on support through education and health and social care plans in schools. And there are many ways in which the education system is discriminating against disabled people and disabled people experiencing a lot of barriers to inclusion. It's a big struggle. And disabled people also don't only face ableism in the school, of course, but also face sexism, racism, and other types of discrimination. We're really looking at all of that and how it works together, and a complete overhaul of the education system. Many disabled people, especially young disabled people, have been pushed into special schools, even though going to mainstream school is their right. To help with our campaigning, ALFFIE has written a document called a Manifesto, which tells the government and others what ALFFIE is fighting for and why. And ALFFIE has 6 things we want to see happen. The first one is to adopt inclusive education legislation. The International Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or UNCRPD, says that disabled people have the right to be educated with non-disabled people, and countries should move towards this in whatever ways they can and remove things that stop this from happening. But the UK is not following this law as it should be, and ALFFIE wants the UK to have a law of its own, because this is international law. So we want there to be a piece of legislation that tells the government that disabled people have a right to be educated alongside their non-disabled peers and within their local communities, and that this should be realised in whatever ways they can. So the second demand is to end segregated education in all its forms. ALFFIE believes, again, that people should be learning in the same classroom or the same environment and should not be separated from others. So we're calling for the closure of all special schools, special units, pupil referral units, and other ways of excluding young people from education. There are so many ways in which disabled people are excluded from education and excluded from the school experience and the experience of school, not only from an education perspective, but also from local community perspective. And at the moment, funding has been taken away from mainstream schools and put into special schools. We want to see the end of all segregated education. So the third demand is to redirect government funding towards supporting mainstream education and improving services. There are many ways in which the government can do this, and a few of them are to look at the way that EHCP plans are currently not funded very well and should be funded better. We need to really develop good practice and policies. If we redirect the money that is used in special schools, then the mainstream schools as a whole would be so much more resourced, which would allow for a lot of the discrimination and discriminatory practices to be resolved, really, and the barriers to be taken down. Demand 4 is to combat systemic curriculum assessment injustice. So when we look at the way that the curriculum and assessments are set up, there's so much discrimination. This means that disabled people can't often do well in assessments. It's not possible. So we really need to redesign assessments, and in some cases not have assessments. The curriculum should be flexible, we believe, and should make sure that it doesn't discriminate against disabled people. In addition, disabled people also face other oppressions such as racism, sexism and classism, which obviously non-disabled people also face, and we need to be tackling those in the curriculum. We see those all the way through in lots of different ways. So we really need to have a curriculum which is flexible and inclusive of everybody, and really looks at and tackles injustice. Demand 5 is to improve inclusive education training nationwide. We know that inclusion works, but many teachers and education professionals of all kinds don't know how to implement inclusion. They don't have the right training and resources to do so. What we're fighting for is that education professionals should have good inclusive practice guidelines and from good practice, and this should be embedded in training and continuous professional development across the country, so that it doesn't matter where you go to school, you get good inclusive practice in the classroom. So demand 6, to combat social injustice in education. So all the way through our demands, we've talked about so many ways in which disabled people and also other groups of people are discriminated against. Our final demand is really to look at the way that all of these things work together. So there are many ways in which we find that people face disadvantage in the education system, and this could be because of their socioeconomic backgrounds or other identities, could be because of their ethnicity or their sexuality, and all of these need to be combated together because we don't only have one identity. We can create policies which understand that segregated education increases poverty, and education cannot be separated from other issues such as housing and social care. We can look at how these things connect and really change the policies to tackle this. If we don't have a truly inclusive system, we're not really going for inclusive education. ALFFIE would love you to join us in campaigning for inclusive education for everyone. If you're interested, please look at the rest of this channel and subscribe. Thank you.